and good evening to those who are joining us in our Zoom chat room, as well as those who peeping in on our Facebook channel as we are also streaming this live on Facebook. Now, this webinar is going to be a bit different this evening. We want to take a more personal approach. So we won't have schools on, but we are launching our new scholarship page on the Student Center's website. And we're going to highlight a number of scholarship-friendly schools, some of which are featured on our CutFest school directory. And then there are others you may not yet see on the directory as yet. If you are joining us on the Zoom, we welcome you. Not sure which country you are joining us from, but wherever you're joining us from, we want to say a good evening to you. If you are peeping in on Facebook, we are definitely happy to have you join us. If you have any queries about scholarships or any study destination that you may be considering, please feel free to send us a message using the comment section or the chat section on your Zoom. If you're on Facebook, you can use the comment section and we will get an answer to you once we can, depending on the question it is. So I want to turn our attention to the Student Center's website, and I'm going to put it in the chat right now so you can access it yourself. www.thestudentcenter.net. We have a scholarship section, a scholarship page, which highlights quite a number of different scholarship-friendly schools. Now, before we start to go through some of those schools that I would like to highlight this evening, we are going to give a few important points that you need to know about scholarships. So point number one is that there aren't an abundance of full scholarships. Now, what do I mean by a full scholarship? Now, a full scholarship is a scholarship that will cover, in many cases, your tuition. And in some cases, it could cover your tuition and living. Now, there aren't many like that. And if there are scholarships like that, they tend to come with a number of conditions, and they're extremely competitive. We found a number of those type of scholarships may be reserved sometimes for athletes, or in some cases they are government sponsored scholarships. So in sometimes when you have those types of scholarships, there's a condition where you may have to return or do some type of give back with those. And in some cases, it does not allow you to always access any post-graduation work permit privileges, especially if that scholarship is to host your study in another country. Majority of scholarships available tend to be partial. And if you are going to require a student visa, this is going to be the case. There are cases where you can stack and have more than one different type of scholarship. Um, or, but in most cases, sometimes depending on how large the scholarship is, you may not be able to stack it. You will just have to go with one, and then in some cases you can reapply. So you really have to do your due diligence when it comes to scholarships, what type of scholarships are available. And so we've created a page that outlines quite a few schools from different destinations, some in the Caribbean, some in Australia, some in the UK, some in Canada, and some in the US. And we will continue to build this page as we continue to get more information about different types of scholarships out there. And some of these scholarships may be small or large. It depends on the school. If you have any questions, good evening again to those that just joined, that are continuing to join in the Zoom. If you have any questions, you can use your chat or Q&A option located on your Zoom panel. If you are peeping in on Facebook, you can use the comment section to send me any queries about scholarships. So I want to highlight a couple of schools, some of which you may know already. And if there's some that you're thinking about and I haven't mentioned, you want to send me a question on them, feel free to do so. Okay, so let's get started on introducing our scholarship page. It's on the Student Center's website. And I would have just put it in the chat, in the Zoom. So check your Zoom chat to get you onto the Student Center's website. Now, some of these schools are listed on our CutFast Education Fair site, where you can find, apply, and enroll via that system. So there are a couple that I want to highlight specially right now. So we have, I just want to make sure that you are seeing my screen. So for those of you on the Zoom, can you let me know, whether by raising your hand or so, if you are seeing my screen, please? Thank you. Great. Thank you very much. All right. So there are some special scholarship opportunities that we have, and I want to highlight a couple before I get into the rest. Now, we have a school in Indiana, USA called Franklin College. And with this is not what we call is a scholarship, but yet not a scholarship. But for persons applying via the Student Center and you are from a CARICOM country, so if you're from the CARICOM region, and you are going to be an international student, so that means that you require an F1 visa to study, there's a special rate which includes your tuition and living expenses. Now, Franklin College is located out in Franklin, Indiana. So if you're thinking about how do I get there, it's roughly about two flights, I will say, from Miami, then from Miami to Indianapolis, and then there's about a 25-minute drive to the school. There's a special rate, for example, where your tuition and living combined together will fall in between 23,000 US dollars to 24,000 US dollars a year. Now, this is a significant scholarship, partial, yes, but this is a reduced rate. So sometimes a scholarship could come in the form of a reduced rate or a special rate, especially if you are going to be an international student. And this is for any of the programs that they have available. Now, this is a school that has a wide range of undergraduate programs. They don't have programs in engineering, but everything else they will have is a liberal arts school. And you can mix your majors how you feel to. So if you want to do business and science, it's possible. If you want to do music and business, it's possible. So this is a type of award, as I said, that is available to international students where both you have a reduced tuition and living costs. So typically 23,000 or 24,000 US dollars might be tuition only, but this cost is both tuition and living. So this is one of the scholarship opportunities that is you can find on the Student Center's scholarship page. And if you have any queries on this, definitely feel free to shoot me a question or two. One of the other ones that we would like to highlight, for those of you who follow us on Facebook and Instagram, you would have known that I was recently out in Australia, in Perth, Western Australia, visiting with Murdoch University. And sometimes some scholarships can be automatic, where as the point of application, you are considered automatically. You don't need to fill out an additional application form. And many students tend to like this because it makes things easy, streamlined, less complicated. Now, in the case of Murdoch University, for students who are going to be international, you get a 20% discount off your tuition fees at different levels of study, primarily at the undergraduate and graduate level. 25% of your tuition fees are deducted. You don't need to set in a form, get references in terms of why you should get a scholarship or so forth. Their scholarship comes in the form of a deduction off of your total tuition. And this will occur every year. So it's not a one time, this is renewable, and there's no additional application form. They have rolling admissions, and they're also listed on the CutFast School Directory. So rolling admissions will mean that you can apply at any time. We normally recommend you apply 6 to 8 months from your start date, but they fill up programs continuously. So there's not a specific deadline, but the earlier you apply, the better. So in the case of Murdoch, in Perth, Western Australia, which I was just there a couple of weeks ago visiting, you get an automatic 20% off your tuition fees once you meet their criteria. Obviously, their criteria will be based on the fact that you're able to be admitted into a program. I also want to turn to a couple other schools that are specially described on the site. So remember, this is the Student Center's official scholarship page, and where we list schools or list special opportunities for students that are looking to go to college or university, whether it's in the Caribbean, whether it's in a destination outside the Caribbean. One of the other highlighted schools, if you're interested in medicine, we have three options available right here in the Caribbean. So we have the American University of the Caribbean, which is in St. Martin, and they have a scholarship which is automatic, no additional application form is required. You get $80,000 off, and this is divided across the time of study. The same with Ross University, located in Barbados. So if you've noticed the different type of scholarships available, and there are many different types, you have some like Franklin College in the US, which is a special tuition rate. Then you have Murdoch, which is a percentage off of your tuition without the need for application for both of these two schools I just mentioned. And then with some of the medical schools right here in the Caribbean, you do get a certain amount off, and it's divided across the length of your study. So if you're in the 4-year program, that $80,000 will spread across your program. And most of these are automatic with no need for an additional application. If you have any questions, as I said, please feel free to put them in the chat option. You can put it in the chat, whether you are on Facebook watching or whether you are in the Zoom room. You can definitely put any questions out. Now, we invite you to definitely take a look at the site to look into more details and about these scholarships I would have highlighted thus far, but there are quite a few others I would like to highlight in this session tonight. But these are just 4 that are listed in a bit more detail compared to some of the others that I'm going to actually go through. I'm going to start with the Canadian bunch because Canada is still continues to be a very popular option for many of our students across the Caribbean. And I know that studying abroad particularly can be quite expensive, and you're always looking to save where you can. So every little bit counts. So we've listed, itemized a couple of schools that you can also find on our CUTFAS school directory that we consider to be scholarship friendly. And by scholarship friendly, some of these scholarships may come in the form of automatic scholarships at application. So sometimes they might be called entrance scholarships. And then there are some schools that will have opportunities for students who are returning. So it doesn't just end when you start, but also when you come back. So some of these schools from Canada we've itemized are Brock University, Carleton, Humber College, Huron at Western, Mount St. Vincent University, Ontario Tech University, and they've actually increased their scholarship amount within the last year. So they have quite a few more sizable scholarships than they usually have to, and that just happened only over the last year or so. You have St. Mary's University. We have Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, University of Guelph, and York University. Now, let me first state that this is not an exhaustive list, but this is the list based on our research and fact and checking so far. And a lot of these schools can be found also on our school directory that are found to be scholarship friendly. I'm going to start with Brock a bit. So Brock has automatic entrance scholarships, and they have scholarships also based on the region that you may be coming from. They have some dedicated for the Caribbean student. And it's kind of unfortunate because they had said that some students don't put in that, is you just have to apply. There isn't anything special that you have to do to claim these scholarships. You just have to apply, especially at the undergraduate level. So a lot of these scholarships are based on students applying directly from secondary school. However, they're one of the few schools that also have scholarships for transfer students. So if you have attended a post-secondary institution, you can still access scholarships as well, because there are some schools where if you're coming in as a transfer, because you may have reduced time on your length of study, sometimes you may not qualify for a lot. But quite a few of these schools on this list, there are exceptions to that rule, and Brock being one of them. Broad also has a very large, interesting scholarship for international students called the Ambassador Awards. And almost every year, there are students from the Caribbean that would access this award. What this award really does is instead of paying international school fees, it actually reduces your school fee to the rate of almost what a Canadian will pay. Now, with these type of scholarships now, it will be a separate application after you've applied. You don't have to wait to get her offer to apply. Their application for this scholarship opens up around, I think February. And then you have until I think the end of March to put in your application. So you will be required to do a few things, one of which includes writing a couple essays and then also a video, and you should have some references. So you have to work a little bit more to convince them why you are worth this investment. And you can apply to this scholarship whether you are a graduate student or whether you are an undergraduate student, whether you're coming straight from high school or whether you're coming from community college or state college. So this is definitely one of those scholarships I think is worth it. And in terms of how they may assign the scholarships as well, it's very sizable. So, and you don't have to apply in your first year either. You have another chance just in case you missed the deadline and you end up going to Brock. You can apply for this scholarship up until probably about your second or third year because it will cover 2 of the years of study. So think about it, especially if you're a transfer student, you may receive some transfer credits. So you may not be spending 4 full years. So you have reduced time, that's reduced costs. And suppose you get one of the automatic scholarships already, that helps to further reduce your costs. Now, if you get this type of scholarship now, this brings your total cost in terms of tuition down to the level of someone who is from Canada. So it is quite an attractive scholarship for persons to apply to. I want to mention Humber College because some people tend to have a view that colleges in Canada aren't scholarship friendly, but quite a few do give scholarships at entrance. Humber is one of those I find unique schools that they even have. They do a little bit more than the average college, especially Ontario College. So they do have automatic consideration once you meet a certain grade average and it would and if you're applying to one their bachelor degree programs, they are even more higher level scholarships available for you if you're applying to one of their bachelor degree programs, and they have a wide range of bachelor degrees. So Humber College is located out in Toronto. They have a couple campuses located they have Mississauga, Lakeshore, and then they have one in downtown Toronto that houses quite a bit of their graduate level programs, especially in the business area. And that's strategic because you have closer access to possible internships, access to industries. And it's a pretty large college. It's very popular among Caribbean students. And they're not only good for at entrance or when you're applying, but as a returning students, I've had quite a number of students also gain more scholarships even after they've returned and they've maintained a good grade point average. So Humber is not the only college that gives scholarships, but we highlighted it here because we know that they have quite a number. Some of the scholarships that are automatic are even based on the region that you're coming from. And I realize that sometimes Caribbean people kind of don't always see what is available to them based on their region. So Humber is one of those schools that they do have some scholarships that are allocated based on the region or the country that you are coming from. Now, I'm not going to highlight all the Canadian schools, but there are a couple that I think you should definitely look at. Um, so Mount St. Vincent University is also a really friendly one for scholarships. A lot of the scholarship consideration is at entrance, whether you are an um, undergraduate. They have a couple grad programs too, and they're also scholarship friendly for graduate programs, graduate applicants as well. And they also have quite a few good continuing scholarship options if as a returning student. They do have a lower tuition fee than usual, So even with the scholarship, then that makes it even more bankable. And if you are a transfer student and you have good grades, they also absorb quite a bit of your credits depending on the program that you are going to transfer to. So which would definitely make it cost effective, a cost effective option for you. One of they don't offer engineering. So if you're someone that's interested in engineering, this might not be the option, but they have sciences, they have business, really good for psychology, also and hospitality if you are in that way inclined, food and nutrition, for example. Now I'm going to come here to Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, and I visited this school last year. They're located in Calgary, Alberta. So on average, 2 flights to get here, one to Toronto and then from Toronto to Calgary. Now, I want to first highlight that you can finish your bachelor degree here if you are coming from state college or community college within 2 years out the bat. So if you have an associate degree and they happen to offer a bachelor degree in the in a program of interest to you, then this would be a really good school option because you could complete your bachelor's and get a Canadian bachelor's within 2 years. And they offer bachelor degree programs within business, also IT. They also have engineering, a couple of engineering programs as well. If you are interested in working in the oil and gas or renewable energy field, this is definitely a good school to go to because that is a big industry out in Alberta. So think about being accessing suitable placements, whether it's an internship, whether it's a work placement, or whether it's a paid co-op work term. This is definitely a school located in a good location that you could access quite a bit of those opportunities, and the employability rate of graduates are quite high, above 90% across certain fields, especially almost close to 100%. And more than recently, a number of the bachelor degree programs that are offered by polytechnics and colleges are now PGWP eligible. So and that I mean postgraduate work permit eligible. So you don't have to worry about whether it fits into certain categories anymore when it comes to a bachelor degree. Across the board, they will be eligible for a postgraduate work permit. There was a slight change in their policy recently. So they, on top of that, they also offer scholarships, especially for students coming from our region, because they would like to attract more students from our region. So if you are interested in hospitality, business, technology, or some aspects of engineering as it relates to the oil and gas sector, mining, even petroleum engineering to some extent, this will be a good option for you. Now, again, remember, if you have any questions regarding anything I have said, or if I've not said something that you are looking to get an answer to, please use the chat or Q&A option to send me a question. Last and definitely not least on the Canadian option, York University. This is a school that has many different scholarship opportunities, some very large ones as well. And every year, students from the region do apply to York and vie for them. There are some that are very large that can cover all of your tuition, and depending on the area of study that you're looking for and your grades, you could be a good candidate. Now, one thing, as I've said before about scholarships, you definitely have to work really hard. It's competitive to get those that are very large, so you definitely have to put the effort in. And I've noticed that some students might say, yes, I want a scholarship, but then when they realize what they have to do, especially if it's a large scholarship, it's kind of some hesitation. And I get it because you are also balancing your work and your assignment. So trying to dedicate all that time might be a lot, but put in the work because you never know how successful that you can be. And also, if you are a transfer student trying to transfer out of university or college in your home country, this is also a good school coming to you as a transfer. So I'm just checking to see if I'm seeing any questions. I'm not seeing any questions yet. So I want to jump from Canada down to the United Kingdom for a bit and speak about scholarships when it relates to the UK. Now, the UK is not always the most scholarship friendly region or country, but it's still a very popular, and even to their own citizens, it is not the most scholarship friendly study destination. If they do have scholarships available, a lot of it may come in the form of a tuition discount. And let me explain this. So if you apply to a UK school, university, they can offer you a deduction off of your tuition if you accept your offer and pay your tuition deposit by a certain time. You will find that there are also other types of scholarships, but I find that they may come after you started attending as well, depending on the program that your program of study. So you really have to do your due diligence. Now, there are some schools that have some special opportunities if you have athletic abilities. And I want to point a note here to UWE Bristol. And I was just there a week ago as well, reviewing two of their three campuses. And they're located south of London, further down, near the water. And they are very interested in athletes. And there are opportunities to those with athletic abilities. They also have a cricket team, so be it England and also football. They will have scholarships available to students who want to study there, but also want to play competitive sports. And they have multiple levels of teams that you can try out for. And some of the scholarships are not full, but they can cover some points of your tuition while you are playing for them. I mean, not many schools offer this, but they're one of the schools in the UK that we've researched. And there's a couple others that will be being listed shortly. But if you have athletic abilities and you are looking at the UK, and it doesn't matter what level of study, it could be undergraduate or it could also be graduate. There's another school on our directory, but it's not listed on their scholarship list. The University of Essex. They actually have even special options for persons who are female and female athletes. And it doesn't matter the level of study either, is available at their undergraduate and graduate level. So it will be good to, if you are looking at the UK as a possible option for yourself, these UE Bristol might be a really good option for you. So if you have any questions about that, you can definitely definitely let me know. Now I want to hit the US. Now I know there's a lot of angst about the US at this time and a lot of uncertainty, but it still continues to be a school that we have students applying to us. It's still a popular destination for students at this time. We recognize that there's some apprehension at times, especially when it comes from an immigration point of view, but it would be remiss of me to leave off the US as an option. Now, you would have heard from me earlier talking about Franklin College located out in Franklin, Indiana, with that special tuition rate for Caribbean students applying through the Student Center or CUPFES, where you can have both your tuition and your living expenses ranging between 23,000 US dollars to $24,000 a year. And that is set for your duration of study. And that is available to both students coming from high school or whether you are a transfer student. And yes, for transfer students, they would definitely absorb some of your credit load. So that can also take off some time. So one to consider. I want to draw attention to a couple of the options that you see listed here right now. And as I said, we are growing this list as we go along. I want to start with Florida Atlantic University. Now, I'm not sure if any person on the call are from Jamaica, but they would have been at Cut Fest in Jamaica last year, October. We call it FAU. Now, they are a public institution based out in Florida. They're in Boca Raton. So it's a drive out from Miami. I would say a little over 40 minutes to hour depending on traffic, and is a large Division I school. So they offer programs not just at the undergraduate level, but they are comprehensive schools. So they're programs at the graduate level as well as the doctoral level. But for students looking to apply to undergraduate level studies, this is specific to you. Now, being a public school in Florida, and if you're coming from the Latin American and Caribbean region, there is something known as LAC, which is a special tuition discount for students coming from Latin America and the Caribbean region. To access LAC or to activate LAC, you have to have a certain GPA to do so. So your grades, this is based primarily on academic merit. So if you're coming from college or university, your GPA should be averaging above 3.7 on a 4.0 scale. It should be. And that will trigger a possible cash scholarship. And that's cash scholarship could be as little as 500 US. But triggering that scholarship, you trigger LAC, which means that you can possibly qualify for in-state fees. Now, Florida Atlantic University, their tuition averages about 17,234 US dollars a year. So if you trigger your LAC and you qualify for in-state fees, it would be almost half of that. So you can do the math in your head how much you'll be paying for tuition. Now, this is applied to your tuition. You would just then have to make sure that you can cover your living. So this is still a significant reduction in your fees. And similarly to Florida Atlantic University, and remember, this is specific to public universities in the state of Florida. We also have University of South Florida, which is located on the western side of the Panhandle in Tampa. They have a similar setup as well. So I'm not sure if there's extent to transfers. It can get a little tricky for the transfers. So I know for persons coming straight from high school, in the case of USF, um, it works for them easily, but it might be a little tricky for persons coming from state college. But in the case of Florida Atlantic University, it does not matter whether you're coming from secondary school or whether you're coming from state college. It's also available to transfer students. So um, if you are interested in, they offer engineering, they offer business, they offer arts and sciences, music, for example. Um, it, you can definitely take a look at Florida Atlantic University and additionally University of South Florida. Good evening to those peeping in on Facebook. If you have any questions about any of the information that you're hearing today about scholarships located on the Student Center scholarship page, please feel free to send us a comment. And if you have a query, use the comment section. For those of you in the Zoom room with me this evening, you can put your questions in the chat or Q&A option located on your Zoom panel. I'm going to soon stop here shortly and take any questions. So think about it before I come to a pause. Before I finish out the US section, I want to focus on the Texas schools. Now, we have Texas A&M University and Texas State University. They are our two schools listed coming out of the state of Texas. And they are public institutions. Similar to Florida, they have a similar setup for students coming from Latin America and the Caribbean. Meeting certain academic requirements. You can also, there's a friendly scholarship agreement. And once it's triggered, you can also access in-state fees, which significantly reduces your tuition fees at these schools. And this is synonymous with schools that are public. If there's nothing wrong with a private school either, private schools, they will have scholarship opportunities as well. But we know it's not always widely available for public schools because they tend to be government funded. So, but they also tend to be overall typically cheaper than private schools. So we found some that have some interesting scholarship setups for students that may be requiring a visa. So you'll be subject to international fees. And as I said, it's about reducing your overall costs as much as you can. So similar to the Florida schools that I just mentioned, these two schools have a similar setup as well. And they offer a wide range of programs because they're both comprehensive schools and they're also competitive sports schools as well. So if you have athletic abilities, you can also take a look at these schools. Now, these schools are going to start popping up on our CutFest Apply as well, where you can also submit applications through our CutFest Apply system located on our CutFest website. So I definitely encourage you to take a look at the CutFest School Directory, which is powered by the Student Center. Now I'm going to pause here for a minute and I'm going to open up the floor to any questions from persons who are in the Zoom or who are peeping in on Facebook. If there's a question about scholarships that you want to have answered, this is the time to put them through. So I'm going to give you a minute or two to think about some questions you may want to ask me, and we can get going with answering, providing some responses. So remember that in the event that you are interested in applying to any of these schools, you can apply to majority of the schools on the CutFast website. So remember, there are different types of scholarships I would have outlined before. Some are going to be automatic. So for example, in the case of Franklin College in the US, that will be automatic. There is no additional application form, and applications can be, it's best to apply at least by April 1st, but this can still take applications after that. For some of these schools in the US, it might be best to apply prior to January 15th to access those scholarships. Um, those special scholarship arrangements, it might be best to do so. But if you are not applying to start this year, you still have the world of time to do your research, attend any of our fairs that we have upcoming. But they are, you just have to look smartly for them. And the earlier you apply, sometimes the better. With some of the schools though, like that I've listed, you have more flexibility. So for schools like Brock in Canada, um, I would say by March 1st, you apply. Even Mount St. Vincent University, I would have mentioned. For schools like Humber and Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, for example, you can apply. They have rolling admissions, so it's not necessarily a particular deadline, and the consideration will be done for any scholarships automatically will be done there. If they're larger scholarships tend to attract additional paperwork, so you might need to do a separate application. I know in the case of York University, and in some cases the University of Guelph, which is also listed on the our scholarship page, some of the larger scholarships, there's a separate application fee. So you apply first and then you apply afterwards to the scholarships. Be prepared if you want to knock off some of your tuition significantly, be prepared to do the work or follow the instructions to do so. It is not an easy task. So you got to put the work in. There are cases, and I've listed some schools and identified schools where it is pretty easy. It's automatic. You don't have to do too much. But there are some schools that will require you to do a bit more to earn that larger set of money. And it's always majority. If you're going to require a visa, it's going to be based on your academics, and in some cases, whether you do some non-academic activities. So not everything might be linked to your grades, but you might be someone who volunteers, you belong to different clubs, people speak well of you, you've built a good repertoire for yourself. So it could be based on some of those other non-academic areas could play up some other strengths that they may also be looking for. So do your research. A number of these schools are large schools, some are medium-sized schools, and some are small schools. So you have to know what your preferences like. And then if you know you don't want too many conditions, then you be mindful of the schools that you apply to. So some make it very easy, but some you have to do a little bit more. Now, I hope that this session was quite helpful. I know it was a lot of information, but once again, I do invite you to visit the Student Center's scholarship page. We recently launched this page, and you can take a look to view some of our scholarship friendly schools. This list is a growing list, so definitely keep looking out for more schools to be added as we go through and do our due diligence. Now, if you don't have any queries, this is where we will say, have a good evening. To those of you who joined us on Facebook, thank you so much. For those of you who've been in the Zoom, thank you for your time and popping in to listen out to the webinar this evening, focusing on scholarships. There's quite a few out there. You just got to do your research, and we help to bring you as much information as we can. Check out our scholarship page on the Student Center's website, and you can explore a lot of these schools on the CUPFEST student directory. Now, I want to make sure you have a good evening. Until our next webinar will be later this month, we're going to be looking at applied medicine. So if you are interested in medicine, we will be bringing another webinar focusing on that to you. And then at the end of the month, we will have our monthly CUPFEST Apply session. That one we don't stream live. If you want to put in to apply to a school or follow up on an application that you submitted through the CUPFEST website, definitely take your time to sign on and find out more about what's happening with your application, or to actually put in an application via the system. Have a good evening, everyone.